All right, so today I'm here with Dora Johansson, who is a ritualist, body worker, and psychomotor therapist, and co founder of the Mystery Foundation, which supports women in remembering their womb wisdom and their body and the earth as temple. Wow! Hi, Dora, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We had a little chat before we pressed record, right? To just see like where do we go, or at least where do we start to go, and we see what unfolds. And we landed on, something that we both talk about quite a lot, which is one, or maybe I would say the most important thing for feeling like we're able to be in our authentic self-expression, which is a feeling of safety.
Mm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about this safety?
Yeah. I think like it's one of the, if not the like main key in all the work that I do is to find a sense of safety within. Because obviously there is different factors. There's also like the outside and then there is the inside. And I tend to focus in my sessions a lot on the inside because usually the clients are set in a space which is relatively safe on the outside. So we go and look like where is safety found in the body, because only when we have that as a foundation, I really believe it's a foundational thing and practice to have. From only from that point can we actually open. I think this is also speaking a lot into like the actual, if we imagine a flower and like the opening of the flower and the feminine opening. And here I'm not just saying it's women, but it's like whenever there is like this movement of opening, the invitation to open, whether that's from yourself or from the outside, whether you're being asked like, okay, what's your opinion on something, whether it's you want to share something, like it's needed, in my opinion, that you feel a sense of, okay, I am safe in myself, therefore I can open. Because if that's not the case, then that opening is either forced and in that sense not authentic, or it just can't really happen.
Yeah, I really feel you in that. Like it's almost like it is possible to push it, but then that pushing is, I mean, on the one hand, really uncomfortable and probably gonna like trigger a contraction. And on the other hand is also like, is that authentic?
Yeah, and I know you speak a lot about like self-expression and authentic self-expression. And of course we can like express ourselves and express in a way which can be led from a trauma response. For example, also when we are like in fawning or pleasing mode and we're doing something because of a fear that if we don't do it, we're not part of the group or we're not loved. And if we're doing that, then I would say that that is not coming from an authentic place. And that can be very hard in the beginning to discern, like what is actually authentic and what is trauma response.
Especially in places where it is actually celebrated to be free and authentic in your expression, right? It can be so sticky, like that actually the seeming to be free and authentic in the self-expression is actually a mask and is actually a people pleasing to like want to be seen and celebrated in that way in the space. And I've definitely been there myself.
Hmm.
It's almost like a bravado or an act or something. It's performance mode. And of course I'm a performer and I don't really like, there's so much to say about the art of performance and what that means. But
Yeah.
I guess sticking to this topic, it is so easy to seem authentic and free and actually be in the people pleasing and almost the opposite of that.
Yeah. And it's a really good point that you make, like, especially when you're in a group where that is seen as the norm or the like almost like the entrance to you can only be in this group if you are authentic and express yourself freely. And then they're like, oh, okay, then something kicks in and it's so sneaky, isn't it? These like trauma responses, how they find their way. And I also want to say that I've recently had a revelation with this again, that the trauma responses are not like our enemy. They are actually there to keep us safe. Like, this is our body really trying its best, and it's a very like evolved mechanism, I would say, especially the people pleasing one, is to make sure that we are part of the group, that we are being loved. So they are not there to like, oh, now you're doing this to me and my body is my enemy. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all when I talk about trauma responses. I really think there is like a big load of self-compassion that we need to bring to the responses that our body has. And it's more about understanding them, reflecting on them, and then from that space being able to discern, okay, what's actually going on.
Yeah, I so agree. And in my Amplify program, one of the things that we focus on quite a lot actually is the inner critic, as something that is impeding a lot of the time how free we feel to express ourselves. And I talk also a lot about really loving this mechanism as something that's keeping us safe. The
Yeah.
inner critic is also a trauma response. And so what you're touching on here, and what makes me curious to like speak into and explore, is that so on the one hand, we need this inner sense of safety to feel like we can express ourselves freely in a way that is authentic and aligned for us. And we also have trauma responses designed to keep us safe, which is a flavor or nuance of the word safety, right?
Yeah, but because the like, it's not actually true in that situation, right? It's like not the actual safety when a trauma response kicks in. It's the idea that once, when this was needed, that would have made you feel safe. But in this situation, so when a trauma response kicks in, then it is because it's probably not needed.
Yeah, exactly. Really beautiful. I can't remember where I read it. I think it might have been in a book called Eating in the Light of the Moon, but there's a metaphor that's come into my mind of a frog. And I might not be like remembering it quite accurately, but the image that I have is of a frog that doesn't know that it knows how to swim. And so it's in the middle of the lake holding onto a log. And it has no proof. It's just holding onto this log. And its belief is that if it lets go of the log, it will drown. But it's not true. But it has to let go of the log to realize that it's not true, to get the proof that it actually can swim. And I think in the metaphor, like the frog needed to maybe just like let go of the log, but stay really close by the log and then hold on to it again. Or let go of the log and then swim around the log a little bit. Just like staying close and then hold on to it again. And slowly, and again, I get that image a bit of the flower opening, right? Slowly, it gets to realize, oh, I can't swim. I don't need the log at all. And I think that's a very beautiful nuance, because I talk a lot also myself about how we need to feel safe in ourselves to feel free and authentic in our self-expression. But I also talk a lot about how we need to move outside our comfort zone into our stretch zone in order to start to have a shift. If we want something new to happen for us, we have to do something new. And that often doesn't feel safe. You know, like when that frog first lets go of that log, that is not going to be a safe feeling. But, and I think this is where it really comes back to the body for both of us. If I have cultivated a way to regulate my nervous system and sort of feel safe within myself, I will feel resourced from the inside to take that leap, to let go of that log, which in this case is the trauma response that's keeping us safe, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I've also, when you say this with the frog and the log, there is a question in my mind of like, what does the frog need to feel safe enough to let go? Right? That is I feel like a very self-empowering if we are able to access that at that moment. Like, let's imagine I'm the frog and I ask myself, well, what do I need to feel safe enough to let go? And then there is obviously different degrees of what is needed. And if we're talking about like actually working with deep trauma and like rewiring trauma, then there is, in my opinion, a difference between like this stepping out of your comfort zone and like pushing yourself. I think that there is another way to do it. So in my de-armoring sessions, the way that I work with it there is that we don't we don't really push anywhere, because the idea is that the body will open even if it takes time, but when it feels safe enough to do so. And I guess the actual that a client comes and has a session is already like a step of, okay, I am in a way like going a bit out of my comfort zone and going there. But then working with the actual trauma is very much a like, what do you need to feel safe? Safe, 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 so that then the opening can really come from the inside.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. What are some of the things that you hear most often from people about about what they do need in order to feel safe for that to happen?
Yeah, so if we're working in a one-on-one de-armoring session, the thing that I would say is the most essential is actually relational safety. So it's, I have to know that you're there. I have to know that you're not leaving. And that's because we're working a lot. I often work with abandonment wound. So it really depends on what is the wound and or the trauma, you could say, and what is almost like the opposite. You know, what is there needed? So if someone has left you, making sure that in the rewiring process, I don't just like move my hands very quickly or turn around or go somewhere else before saying anything. So I'm very aware of that. So it's like really establishing this, okay, I'm here with you. It's deep presence. Deep presence is like key to create safety. And it is like creating a safe space. The room here is actually like the outside of the session space. Like, what's in the room? Is the door locked? Is it warm enough? Like all these kind of bodily things that we also need to feel safe are the main ones, I would say. And then it depends what the trauma is, the specific one that we're working with.
Beautiful. I hear sometimes, like a criticism almost of their concept of safe spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the criticisms that I hear is about, you know, we're almost like mollycoddling people and taking away their power, like overprotecting them and treating them as fragile in a way that takes away their power. I don't know what you think about that. Like, for me, there's something so empowering about the idea that we can cultivate, of course, get support with that, because co-regulation, we're social creatures, is so important, but that also we can self-regulate and we can have practices that cultivate this inner safety that is then there for us and with us all the time. Like, to me, that's very powerful. I wonder what you think about, about the safe space debate.
Yeah. I would say I agree with you. I have heard the like criticism on that safe spaces are one, not possible. And I agree to an extent. You know, it is not possible to create a safe container or room. But I am also very, let's say, like conscious of how I describe my spaces. So I don't describe them as a safe space, but I do describe them as like with invitations to create safety, you know? And I think that's what it is. That's what we're doing. And I find that is supporting self-empowerment in every way. I don't feel that this is like protecting someone from the outside world in any way, because it's only about like cultivating that safety within. And how can you not become stronger from that on the inside? Yeah, I think that's what I think mostly about it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too, really. And I sometimes even like to personify both the voice and certain parts of us as being like a child that sort of needs a sense of safety and a sense of nurture to like really grow and flourish.
Definitely. And especially if we're working with like younger parts of us, inner child stuff and trauma, it's like the tough love is just not going to cut it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a women at like my amplify program is a group of women that meet on Tuesdays, and I also take care not to call it a safe space,
Mm.
but we have a monthly feedback form that I, as part of a deeper way to really keep track of where different people are at within the program.
Mm-hmm.
And in that form, I keep seeing like the feedback, oh, it's such a safe space. It's such a safe space. And I take care to say it is not, this is actually not a safe space, because when we're working specifically with authentic self expression and feeling free to express oneself freely, we cannot guarantee that within that container, then someone might say something that triggers or hurts somebody else.
Yeah.
And yet it still feels safe because there's that sort of allowing vibe that I also would like to see ripple out more into the world. Like maybe a safe space is not possible, but certainly when I choose the spaces I'm in, and there are spaces that are like, I mean, of course, there's judgment in most spaces, but there are spaces where people are aware of that their judgment is often about something within
Mm-hmm.
themselves, you know? And spaces where like saying no is celebrated, expressing yourself more freely is celebrated. And that feels safer to me.
Yeah.
Safer. I feel more free. I feel more able to be in that most direct, raw, spontaneous expression of myself, where there's not that constant voice going on, second guessing, doubting, wondering if people like me. I love when I'm free from that, and it's just this raw interaction with the world around me. And I have that in spaces where I feel safer.
Absolutely. And I think the like main difference here that you're pointing out so well is like you're saying it makes me feel safe rather than saying it is a safe space. And I think we really need to practice, like, I guess again taking more self-responsibility and not labeling things, but actually saying in this space I feel safe. And that is the key, I think, to like again and again, what makes me feel safe? And even in a space that has felt safe for, let's say, like 20 minutes, something happens, there is a trigger. Oh, I notice I don't feel safe anymore. What happened here? Blah, blah, blah. Like going into that. So it's like a constant evolving thing, isn't it? The inner feeling of safety.
Right, right. And if I notice that I don't feel safe, then I have some different options, right? I might change something within myself. It might be a simple case of just connecting to my breath, or like, having a little bit of a release with the voice or something like this. Or it might be a case of really deciding that I need to change something about the outer environment, or
Yes,
change the way that I'm interacting with the outer environment.
absolutely. Or remove myself from the situation. I think in general, it's like when you first begin to practice this, like establishing a sense of safety within, it's really good to become aware of like, what are my options in a situation where I don't feel safe anymore? Like, can I remove myself from the situation? Is there something that I can do inside? Like, can I shift the focus inside? And then also, is there something that I need to say? But I think those two are first. Like, do I need to remove myself? What's happening inside me? And then comes the like, from that place, is there something that I need to say?
Yeah, beautiful. For me, and I expect, I think that I have a lot of, probably you also have a lot of, a little bit high achieving people in the audience. And so maybe some people resonate with this, that like for me, it was a bit of a growth edge to actually admit that I didn't feel safe.
Mhm.
They have a little bit this like tough girl, I'm strong kind of, I wouldn't feel unsafe kind of thing. Do you resonate with that, or do you have clients that that would resonate with that?
I'm sure I would have clients, but I feel for myself personally that I have the pattern which is much more of like a self judgment and self blaming of I don't feel safe or I should feel safe. Like it's almost like I don't even like there's no time for me to think the thought through of like I don't feel safe before the thought of like, well, you should do better comes in already. So that's my voice in the head and my challenge to see of like, oh, okay, that's there now. What's going on? So it's like a very fast of like, well, now you know all the theory, and I'm sure that there is a lot of people out there who are like in this field and have learned about trauma responses and learned about what it is to like what does it take to work with this, and you have all the tools. And also for anyone who's like starting out with this, you're in the beginning phase, you have all the tools, and then comes a point where it's about like implementing them. And you think that because, or maybe that's like more if you come from like an academic background, where like you've read everything, you know the theory, and then it comes to the point and you're so disappointed that you can't like on the first try do what you know would be good to do. But I think this is what's my headphone? This is really where the like self-compassion comes in of like, well, this is the first step. You're realizing what's happening. And that is the step that you cannot skip in this. You're realizing, and then, okay, what is it then that I need? And this is actually something that I again got reminded of in your program, something with Let It Shine or like Shine. What
The
was it
Own
called
Your
again?
Shine.
Own
It
Your
was the
Shine.
Own Your Shine.
Yes, exactly. Like it was in there that you talked about this like comfort zone, and then we have the stretch zone, and then we have the panic zone. And I realized how much I had been like pressuring myself of like, now I know how this all should work, but I feel like such a failure when at moments I'm not able to take care of myself in the way that the textbook says. So what came in through your program was this like self-compassion and realizing that you also need to sometimes just accept where you are, and that it's okay and that it's good enough what you are doing. I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but
Beautiful tangent. Yeah. I find so many almost paradoxes within this work, that a path to growth, or if I want to grow or transform, an essential precursor to that is acceptance and accepting where I am now.
yeah,
It's like being able to almost hold that duality of accepting this while also seeing the longing and the possibility of what is desired or what is dreamed for.
absolutely. I think this was something I struggled with so much in the beginning, that there needed to be like self acceptance for where I'm at. Like, can I love myself exactly the way I am, with a vision of like, there is things that I would like to heal and would like to change. And I feel like with like self-acceptance, and actually like women's circles, I think, have been a massive, massive help for me in this. Like, you sit in a group and you share your thoughts, and the shame, you can almost like literally just see it dissolving. The shame of like, I'm not doing good enough, or I'm not accepting myself for where I'm at. And this is also, we spoke about, you talked about earlier, like being in spaces where there is acceptance, where there is like a norm that you are okay to show up exactly the way that you are. And I think there is a enormous healing power in again and again daring to step into those spaces. And it's not always easy, right? Because of course there is hopefully this like understanding that you can be accepted exactly the way that you are, but it also means that you're actually being seen and almost like being called forward. At least I had the privilege, let's say, to be in women's circle where women really saw me, and they were not letting me get away, you know. They were really calling me forward to be like, what is it really that you're saying? What is really true to you here? That has been life transforming for me. I don't know if you've had experiences like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can pick out several different spaces where I've felt that in very different ways, you know, like women's circles, and I also Nordic women's gathering is a
Yeah.
space where I can pick out, you know, like really being witnessed and being seen in the trueness of me. That is so healing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a little bit more wild way, you know, Burning Man related events and like the Scandinavian burns here, that's been so actually healing. And I think we're doing a similar thing. I'm transitioning a bit now into each of our work, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how it might support anyone who's resonating with any of these topics. That I also see us doing that inside Amplify. It's like it is a space to be witnessed in your trueness and also in your vulnerability. Like, we've got an open stage where you're actually like expressing yourself more creatively and like being witnessed in that. But then we're also, you know, sharing a lot from this deepest, truest space. And I think, you know, when it comes to safety, we do a lot of different things in Amplify, but it's mostly related to the voice, right? Because when it comes to safety, we can really use the voice as something to self-regulate and calm our nervous system and really cultivate that sense of inner safety. While as we're working with the voice, we're also cultivating our capacity to really express what it is that I want, what it is that I need, what it is that I'm not okay with, actually. And that is giving me the ability to create safety for myself also in the outer environment. So that I know, if I know that my voice is there for me when I need it,
Mm-hmm.
I will feel more safe. Because of often a feeling of lack of safety comes from all the times when we haven't done that for ourselves. We haven't spoken up to advocate for ourselves, like to stop something from happening or to make something happen that we really wanted to happen. I know that you work also a little bit, I think, with the voice, but you've also mentioned de-armoring. Do you want to speak into a little bit about, you know, if people, how can people work with you on these topics?
Yeah, I think in many ways, like, our work has overlaps in that sense. I think one of the most important works at the moment is to liberate our voice. And the de-armoring is like part of opening up to it. I work a lot with the connection between the womb and the yoni and the voice, because they are so, in women, they are so like connected. You know, when we are a fetus in the mother in the womb, then actually the vocal cords and the muscles in the pelvic floor, they're one until the spine gets created and then it gets separated, but they're still so very similar. So working with like de-armoring. So de-armoring can be many things, but one of the ways that you can work with it is through working with touch and relaxing the muscles. So the idea is that if you have been like exposed to something that you've experienced as traumatic, that it can be stored in our fascia, so that the body kind of like stores whatever you like, the reaction that you weren't able to feel when this event happened to you. And then by going in and de-armoring that space, we can have access to like memories, feelings, anything that wasn't able to be felt in that moment when it happened, and through that release it. And you can feel it like physically in the muscle and in the fascia that it is released. So often it feels like a hard point in the beginning, and then it almost like disappears. So I work with that both in this physical touch sense, especially in the yoni and womb area. So external de-armoring and also internal vaginal de-armoring I work with. And then I also work with de-armoring in a more like energetic sense, you could say. And that's also where the voice comes in a lot. Although we also use it when we do the physical de-armoring, because releasing through the voice, as you say, has both the like, you're regulating yourself, you're expressing yourself, and you can move energy like so powerful. I know you've probably experienced this when you're singing, that all of a sudden you just feel like you're on top of the world, right? Because you've moved so much energy. And so yes, so working with the yoni womb and then the voice and also the connection, like what is it that you feel and sense in your womb, which often, in my experience and also myself, I feel that my truth, my like core truth, is centered in my womb, and that there is mysteries in my womb that I have access to by like channeling them through my voice. And often it comes in sounds, often it comes in like words that are not really words, and sometimes it comes with words. So when I tune into what is in my womb, and we do like different exercises with it, I have something called the yoni circle, where we go through different stages of like awakening the womb with some breath work, with rite of the womb, which is like a ritual that we go through. We do some female pleasure anatomy, because how are you expected to connect to your womb and your yoni if you don't know what it looks like and like what the organs are and how it's all kind of put up together? Because there's still so much shame and like lack of knowledge, because not that many years ago a clitoris was not included in anatomy books in medicine. Like that's kind of where we're coming from. And so there is this whole like self reclamation, the yoni, and also of the womb. And then we also do some mirror work where we basically meet our yoni in the mirror. And if I don't know if you've ever done that, but the first time I did that, it was like life changing. It was like, wow, I see the universe that I have between my legs, and it's the most precious and beautiful thing in the world. And then also a lot of sadness came of like, wow, and I've been so disconnected from it. And my relationship to her is not loving. And then so there's a lot of reflections there, and a lot of like, what relationship do we want to have with our yoni? And then we also do some self de-armoring, which is a beautiful way to release anything that is stuck, any stagnant energy, again using the voice also to express here. And yeah, so that is one of the ways to work with me. Right now I'm doing that in a like 1-to-1 container, and it's online. So we meet for 4 times, we go through all these things, and then we have a session afterwards as like a closing.
Beautiful. Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. I love that you went into a bit of detail there because I think it was important to explain how we got from safety and voice into yoni. And I was fascinated by what you said about the fetus and how those parts only get separated when the spine is formed. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm so intrigued by that. But, for myself, I have definitely found a parallel between the freeing of my voice and the awakening of my sexuality
Mm-hmm.
and the integration of sensuality
Mm.
into my being, into my person. So, yeah, really beautiful that you bring that. And those sessions sound really beautiful.
Yeah, they're very deep, and I think it's also like the link that I see between womb wisdom work and voice is very much this like coming home, right? Where we're releasing through jammering, through expressing anything that's most like kept us silenced, and coming home to what is our true voice. And by voice here, I don't only mean like the actual voice, but also like the inner voice, like what am I here to bring, to say, to be in service of, like really this me, like here I am feeling. And I believe that we need that more than ever now at this time. It's more than ever important that like each of our voices is here to be heard. Like we all carry individual gifts, and they are needed. So yeah, I think your and my work overlap in that way, that at least I see that there is like a common, this is why we do it. And of course I can't speak for you, but yeah, all our voices are needed.
Mic drop. I feel like that's the end. That's the end right there. Dora, thank you so much for the chat today. Thank you.
Thank you.